Welcome everybody to the Build 42 tier list. I'll be ranking every new feature that will be coming to Project Zomboid. I really love the majority of these, but that would be a boring tier list, so I'm going to try and rank them in order. First up, we've got animals, which I am very excited for. They'll be adding sheep, chickens, pigs, cows, rats, rabbits and deer. A whole array which will make the world feel much more alive. As an animal lover, this is easily going in the top tier. Next up is animal husbandry, which is quite important if they're going to add animals. With this, you'll have a renewable source of meat, leather, wool, eggs and milk. And of course, it is just nice to have some company. So I'll put that in really enjoyable for now. I'm going to reserve this top tier for the 5 that I'm most excited for. Next up, we have hunting. Now I love hunting in absolutely any game that I play. You can't have a survival game without hunting, so this is a long overdue feature. So it's pretty simple. You can track wild animals by their paw prints and drop-ins. You could also use traps for some smaller game. For those of you that enjoy the wilderness, hunting will be a viable source of food, which is awesome. I think this is absolutely necessary, so it's going in the top tier. And next up, we have basements, one that is pretty cool. If I was American, I would definitely be in a basement right now, but instead I'm in a shed. Anyway, they'll be adding basements, bunkers, panic rooms and Wayne's World sets. The frequency of their appearances will also be governed by a sandbox option, which means you can have as many or as little as you want. It's always good to have the option. They're going to be great for making some cool bases, but we're aiming for quite an even list here, so we're going to put this in quite good. On the opposite note, they're adding skyscrapers, where you'll find up to 32 zombie-filled floors. Now these are going to make the big cities feel huge, and provide incredible locations for bases. If you can wipe that out and defend the bottom floor, you've got more room than you will ever need. If you play on a server, there's nothing more baller than owning a skyscraper. So I'd say the skyscrapers are about as good as the basements. Could go either way, I think they're pretty close. But with the amount of variety and different basement designs, I think it takes the cake. Performance. This one is quite in depth, so I'm going to give you the short of it. Basically, the game will look nicer while also bringing a large performance boost. I've never noticed any issues myself with performance, but it's only a positive they're improving it. And if the game looks nicer, I'm all for that. Either way, this is good for everybody. So that can get up here in the second tier. Lighting. So they're adding a new lighting propagation system that has light bounce off walls and leak through windows, doors and other spaces more realistically, allowing for more natural ambient light effects and getting rid of those nasty room-based lighting issues. I think lighting adds a lot to games. Some good lighting can really change the vibe. They'll also be changing the street lights into an orange hue, which I think looks great. It's got the 90s vibe. Plus, there'll be bright glowing neon signs, which look awesome, especially if you could collect them for your base. I love some good ambient lighting, so I'm going to put that in the second tier, probably in between these two. Next up is a big one. We have the crafting overhaul, where they'll be adding a huge in-depth crafting system. This update will provide a way for servers to be able to run indefinitely without the need to wipe or respawn loot, which is apparently a big deal for those who enjoy servers, so that's good. They'll be adding new craftable weapons and crafting machines that will have tiers from primitive Stone Age style furnaces to advanced electrical machines that can only be found pre-existing on the map. This is one of the biggest things coming to the game, and it'll bring a crazy amount of possibilities. We'll dive deeper into that though. The amount they're adding is quite incredible, so I'm going to put this into number 2 for now. So, one thing that comes with that is blacksmithing and metal smelting. And in their words, most items that one could reasonably expect to be blacksmithed can be blacksmithed, and in most cases, the resultant item is a more rugged, crafted version than the default version of the item that you may be used to. So there'll be a crazy amount of new weapons that we can craft, which will also be stronger than the ones you can loot. That's great, so it actually gives you a reason to want to craft as well. And I mean, blacksmithing is just so cool, isn't it? Especially if you're into the medieval times. And I do love them, so I think this might have to go at the top of really enjoyable. And the next one involved in the huge crafting update is stoneworking and pottery. So, you'll be able to make clay and stone walls, along with new wooden walls and constructions, which will make base building a lot more interesting. And also the pottery, where you can craft your own bowls, pots, small containers and such. I'm not too sure how useful that would be yet, but I do think it'll be enjoyable for sure. I think it'll be good to have some hobbies other than killing zombies. I think that can go above the basements. I don't think it's crucial, but it is quite good. Moving on to the map expansion. So Knox County is expanding with 3 towns and numerous smaller map locations, along with updates to the existing map. There will also be new vehicles with liveries specific to towns, like a local sheriff. Now the map is already very large, but for those who play the game a lot, this would be very nice to have in the base game. Some of the new areas look very cool as well, so I think this can go in really enjoyable. I think the difference between these two is you can easily mod some map extensions, but you won't be able to change the performance at the same level that will come with this update. Now we have a big one, weapons and weapon parts. There will be 179 new weapons being added, and that is a lot, and a huge portion of those are ones that can be crafted. It's going to be great to have a huge variety to choose from. A new system comes with the weapon parts. Weapons will now have separated parts which will have their own durability. Let's say you have a machete. The handle and blade will be different durabilities, and once the blade snaps, you can still use the half-broken weapon, which makes sense. This is going to be great, so I'll put it in the top 5. Next up we have camping. You can now camp in style with a variety of new tents, as well as sleeping bags which can be packed away and attached to your backpack. They're also adding a bunch of new items to assist you outdoors. They're really making this update great to just live out in the wild, survive off the land. And it's so nice and cozy just camping out in the woods with a fire. I think for now this can go in the top of quite good. I find tier lists quite hard actually, I'm sure there'll be some shuffling around. But next we have cleaning and wallpapers. There will be a new cleaning system to make your base look even nicer. You can finally get rid of the grime on your walls. You can also decorate your base with wallpaper. This is great for people who like to take care of their homes and decorate. So knowing how much blood can get everywhere, and being able to clean it up will add to the realism. I'm going to put that between camping and stonework. I think the little features like this are quite great. Farming Overhaul. There's a whole bunch of changes to the system. There will be more realistic growing times, which will be more affected by the seasons, and a whole load of new crops including tobacco, which is great for you smokers, a long-term renewable source for your fix. There will be new pests in slugs and snails, and also you'll need to water your houseplants to keep them alive. That one might become quite tedious, although I guess in the late game it's these small tasks that kind of keep you going. I do think this is a great addition though, as a long-term food source is very important. I'm going to put this just behind animal husbandry. And now we have the fishing overhaul, one that I'm so excited for. I love fishing in every game and in real life. So they've changed it up and added a new mini game, a bunch of new fish that will be located in random procedurally generated groups, of which can be attracted with chum or scared off by loud noises. I've never really fished in Zomboid because it is boring, but with this I'm definitely going to be out in there slinging hooks. For me, this is going at the top of the second tier. Now we have the fluid system. This gives you the ability to transfer specific amounts of liquid between containers. You could add multiple different liquids into a container to make a cocktail of your choice. It's good for mixing paints, fuels, and whatever else. Maybe you want to poison a water bottle and give it to your friend. You could do that, which is pretty funny. As it stands, I'm not too sure on how many different uses there are for it. So I'm going to put it in nice to have, because I think it's fair to say that it is just nice to have. Foraging Biomes. There will be improved foraging areas, which will be much more natural, and you will be able to forage in multiple forest biomes for some great wilderness survival. You can see the difference between the old and new, and the new is a lot more realistic instead of being so blocky. I don't have too much experience with foraging yet, so for now it can go at the top of nice to have. Next up we have the Breakable Fences, and as I'm sure you know, there are currently unbreakable fences, but those will no longer be indestructible. However, they say it will take a large horde a long time to break the fence, which is definitely good, although I do love the comfort in knowing you're safe around these fences. But it will be a sandbox option to turn it off, which is definitely a good choice to give us. For the sake of an even list, I'm going to put this in meh. I think it looks very cool though how they kind of break through a small point in the fence and just pour out. It's kind of like a movie. Next up is quite a big one in gun changes, where aim will now be affected by panic, alcohol, wind, rain and fog. Strength will help with recoil. Eagle-eyed and short-sighted can change the optimal sight range. There will be a whole bunch of changes that make it more realistic. And it seems the guns will be improved for close range. The system is quite simple right now, so it's good to improve it. I'm going to put that up here. Seems like a good spot. Next up we have bows and crossbows, which have unfortunately been pushed back to a later date. But we know they're coming, and I'm a huge fiend for bows in games. It pairs up with the hunting, but also just for killing zombies. To have a renewable source of ranged attacks, which will be silent, is going to be great. It'll also be great for living in the wilderness. A bow and a spear is all you really need. I'm really looking forward to this one. I think this might go number 2. Now we have the improved Discord integration. So Discord chat will show in the game chat, and server operators can trigger commands through Discord to begin a timed event or trigger changes in gameplay. As someone who has never played servers, I have no use for this, but possibly in the future. So for that case, in my personal experience, that can go in meh. New media, lore and storytelling. So they're going to be adding new environmental storytelling and lore in the form of readable flyers and newspapers, book titles, vehicle liveries, TV and radio stations, annotated maps, random world stories, and hundreds of new decorative items. Being a sandbox game, story is far from the focus, but it is nice to have some world building. Definitely adds to the experience. I think top of nice to have is fair. New bags and containers. They'll be adding a whole load of new bags and containers for you to store your items in style. Just take a look at some of these. Be good to have some variety. I would define that as nice to have. New clothing and alternate models. They'll be adding dozens of new clothing items. You could dress up in a SWAT uniform, a football player, or some Halloween outfits with spooky masks. There will also be multiple models. For example, a different arm guard model if the character is wearing a bulky jacket. Also, helmets, headgear and masks will affect your vision cone and hearing. I'm not too much of a fashionista. I'm going to put this at the top of nice to have. Next up is an incredible one. New animations. They say everything will look and feel smoother, while adding the ability to drag zombies, throw them out the window, grapple and more. They've changed the whole way it works, and how people interact in the game. And the modders are going to go crazy with this one, you know? But I think this looks great. I actually think it deserves a place in the top 5. So I might have to demote this. I think it actually goes 3rd for me. Because right now, if you pick up a zombie to move it, it just disappears like you're putting it in your pocket. but actually dragging the bodies away, I don't know, I feel like it adds so much. Next up is dynamic music. So they've confirmed over 50 new songs coming to the game, which is awesome. Dynamic music will not only be when facing zombies, but now will react to loot, special buildings, relaxing by a campfire, etc. With a whole new array of ambient sounds. Sound adds so much to the experience, and this music and ambient sounds will really immerse you into the game. So this goes quite high up on the list. Somewhere around there. Talking about sound, we have player vocals. Your character will be wheezing, gasping and grunting, with the option to choose a voice in character creation and change the amount it will happen. I really like this, it adds to the immersion. If you enjoyed Red Dead 2, you'll understand the way Arthur just speaks to himself. I love it. This isn't quite on this level yet, but it's a step in a good direction. It can go in really enjoyable. Oh, but I'm going to keep it to 1 row per tier, so I'm going to have to demote the map expansion. Next up, the Many Years Later challenge map. This is an overrun map with little loot, where the revamped crafting will come in handy. If you're on YouTube or the Steam Workshop, I'm sure you'll kind of recognise this, as it is basically the 10 Years Later mod, just in vanilla. So it will be nice to have, but it's nothing revolutionary. That can go down here. And now we have Randomized Wilderness. This will remove the current black borders of the map and allow players to explore a randomly generated wilderness. A lot more realistic than the current Abyss. There'll be a bunch of different biomes. They're definitely gearing it more towards surviving out in the woods. I'm going to put this in quite good. Next up we have rats. A problem I've dealt with very recently. I think these will actually make the world feel a lot more alive. And it could be a last resort meal if you catch one. I'm not sure about this, but there's probably the chance of getting a disease as well. Although I have dealt with rats recently and they are very annoying. I'll put them in nice to have. Still think they'll be cool. Now we have the mod manager. This will be an official mod manager allowing you to search, favourite and filter to make it quick and easy to traverse your long list of mods. For those who don't play modded, this is irrelevant, but those of you who install an insane amount, this will make it a lot easier to control. It's definitely nice for YouTubers as well who have to test out and showcase mods and such. This is definitely nice to have. Down to the last 3. And next up is the modding possibilities that will come along with this new update. And you just know, modders will be able to create some incredible mods, making the game so much better. I guess the only downside right now is the possibility of having to wait for our current mods to get updated, if they ever do. Although the important ones will definitely get updated, so there's no real worry there. I quite like my top 5 right now. This can go just on the edge and be number 1 in really enjoyable. So unfortunately this has to move down. The penultimate one is rebalanced new traits and professions. This is pretty cool, but I do need to see a bit more about it to get excited. I guess until they properly show it, I can't really judge. But it will be nice to have, so this can go just above the rats. And the last one. I'm sure these are like Marmite. You either hate them or love them. And personally, I don't really see a need to change them. These are the only 2 official images they've released so far. I don't necessarily think they're bad, but the current ones are fine and the pixelated look quite fits the vibe, so I'm not a huge fan of those. I know Build 42 is taking forever, but when I just look at this list, I can't help but just be excited, man. However long it takes, it's going to be amazing, I'm sure. Well guys, that is my list. I'm a hugely indecisive person, so tier lists are really hard for me, but I tried. I'm sure my list would be a bit different if I tried again tomorrow. Anyway, if you think I made the worst tier list in the world, leave a comment down below. If you absolutely loved it, hey, subscribe, leave a like, and have a great day.